Well, good morning and welcome to Our Stories. Our guest today is Dianne DeVore. And Dianne's been telling me about the history that she has in herself and her family associated with First Presbyterian Church. Been part of her entire life. Why don't you tell us about the ties to the church that goes back even beyond your life?
My maternal grandmother began coming to First Presbyterian Church here in about 1920. She and her family had moved here from the Stonington-Taylorville area, and so my mother was alive then, and that's when she began coming here too. Other Presbyterian ties I have, my paternal grandparents went to Bethlehem Presbyterian Church, and I often went there with them, and in the summer, to Bible school and that kind of thing. So I'm Presbyterian on both sides.
Okay. Yeah. So you grew up in the church, and then after high school, you went to Millikan. Got a degree in elementary ed, did some teaching, and some subbing when your children were young.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me a little bit about that experience of you working in the schools here.
Well, the subbing worked out very well because if the kids got sick or I was sick, then I wasn't shirking responsibility if I had taken a full-time job. So that worked out very well and kept me abreast of what the Decatur Public School System was doing, and so that part worked out really well.
Yeah. At the same time, you had a life here at the church, and you were involved in the church here in a number of ways.
Mm-hmm.
What kinds of things did you focus on in your life here at First Pres?
The three things that come to mind very readily. I was on session in the late 80s, I think, maybe even early 90s. And so I got to see what we were doing from that side as well. I taught Sunday school with Debbie Evans, and that was always fun. The kids loved her, and she was an excellent teacher, so I could take lessons from her. That she didn't know that, but we always had fun doing that. And then my first experience with bells was when Festus Paul was director, and then we played next to each other for a while after he stopped directing. And I don't remember that date exactly. Long time ago.
Yeah, that goes back pretty far.
Yeah, that goes back far, and I don't think I was involved continually from that time on, but I've been involved in handbell choir now continually since Barbara became director, I believe, or shortly after maybe.
Yeah. So what age Sunday school did you teach?
Oh, they were little people, like second and third grade, and they didn't have many filters, and so we learned a lot of things from them and had a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And I had gone to high school with Debbie's husband, Tom. So I actually knew him before I knew Debbie, and then we were friends from that early time on.
You also had gotten married and started a family. How many children did you?
I have 2 sons. Adrian is 51, lives in Austin, Texas. Christopher's 49 and lives in the Minneapolis area. And they were both baptized here and came here as little people and continued Sunday school and all until they were confirmed. And then they both went away to school. They both went to the U of I. Christopher graduated from the U of I. Adrian graduated from Millikan. So always a part of their life to be here.
Yeah.
Clear back to when the chapel was across the way.
Oh, yeah.
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 Then you got a job at TMH in the foundation office. And you worked there for 23 years as the assistant to the president of the foundation. What kind of responsibilities did that involve?
Let me go back to the question about, that I didn't answer the part about my mother.
Oh, okay.
She continued to be active here until they moved to Florida. And one of her favorite things that she did, as far as I remember, she was the pianist for the 8 o'clock service in the old chapel. And my boys still remember that part, possibly because she always had candy for them when we came to church. They knew that their grandmother would have candy. Okay, I wanted to be sure and say something about Mother, because that was a real important part. Music was a very important part of her life.
Yeah.
And my maternal grandmother was at Milliken, and so I grew up with the music and being here and with Mother. Okay, now my time at DMH. That was a wonderful time for me. The people that we met were interested in the hospital. It wasn't a hard sell to get donors because they already believed in the hospital, and we did too.
Yeah.
So we, as donor relations coordinator, I tried to keep on top of things with thank yous and new ideas that would come across that I thought they might be interested in. And it was a small office, so we just all helped each other out. And if somebody was busy doing something and needed to tend to something that I usually did, they were happy to do that, and vice versa. One thing that I particularly enjoyed doing was our ASK program, ASK, Assistance Shared with Kindness. And from monies that we had raised, we made available to employees, DMH employees, who needed help. We had guidelines and limits and so forth. But they filled out a form and they said what they were having trouble with financially, and then we had a meeting and talked to them, and then if we could help them, we did. And I thought that was really especially thoughtful, as the administration was behind that, of course, all the way too. So it gave the employees a chance to know that, you know, they were in a caring community.
Yeah. You also had the responsibility of kind of keeping pretty close tabs on the record keeping about the financial donations and everything. So that was certainly a lot of responsibility on your part.
Yeah. And we had a program. Computers were coming into their own then, and we had a program. So it kind of kept you on track as to what to look for, a place for notes to help remind you of what this particular donor liked, what programs and so forth. That was a big help. And that was available to all of us in the foundation office.
Yeah.
So that if somebody was going to have lunch or a conversation, they could look in and see what someone else had also talked about.
And you told me that there were instances in which farms were donated to the hospital.
Right.
To the foundation, I mean.
To the hospital through the foundation.
Yeah.
Foundation is the legal means of doing that. And, you know, it was especially meaningful both to the families who gave, and to this day there are signs that say this was given by a certain family. And the hospital or the foundation did not do the farming. There are farm departments at the banks, so we had farm managers through the banks, and also Heartland Ag is a farm business. And so we wanted to keep our connections in the community, with the farming community, with the farm advisors, so that we had an idea of what was going on as people would ask, and we wanted to know too.
Sure. Yeah, I really hadn't anticipated when you talked about donations that people would be, leaving farms to you, but I can see where that is kind of a logical step in this community.
And maybe, if not all of their farmland, a certain portion of it, whatever was given, that was another thing that I was especially proud of in our office. Whatever was given, whether it be a farm or, other kinds of big gifts, or if it was a small gift, just like in the Bible.
Right.
It was very much appreciated, and oftentimes the small gifts were more meaningful to the donor because they didn't have the means.
Right.
The farm people, we loved getting the farm, or portion of it, but they didn't have some of the hardships that some of the other donors might have. And oftentimes, those gifts were the result of good care, good patient care at the hospital, either for the donor themselves or their families, friends, that kind of thing.
Taking you back to the church now, you said that one important thing that happened for you here was that you established a lifetime friendship here. Tell us about
I did.
that.
Well, I established a lot of them, but the one that, when we talked, that I was referring to, that I still enjoy to this day, is Sue Miller. She and I met here. I thought we were 6. She corrected me and said we were 4. She now lives in the Seattle, Washington area. She and her husband are retired, and I just spoke with her maybe a week or 10 days ago. And it's the kind of friend that you don't have to talk to every week, every month. We try to talk maybe 3 or 4 times a year, and it's just like we talked yesterday in Sunday school. We went to high school together, and it's just been a very, very special kind of friend to have.
Well, that's great. That's great. Well, Dianne, thank you so much for sharing your story with us. It's been interesting, and really appreciate it.
You're most welcome. And I do think oral histories are very valuable. Mine might not be so valuable, but I do think the whole process is very valuable, and it's very time consuming, I know. So thank you.
Okay.